Good day. I'm Jim Starr, plant pathologist, plant nematologist. Today we're going to begin some discussions about plant parasitic nematodes. We will begin with some brief discussion of general concepts of nematodes, their general biology as a group, and then we'll talk more specifically of about 4 different important genera of nematodes and their role as plant pathogens and plant parasites. So, nematodes are microscopic roundworms that inhabit either an aquatic or at least a moist environment. The ones we're interested in are primarily in the soil. Nematodes in general have a very simple tubular shape, but a rather complex anatomy for plant pathogens. It includes a cuticle, an intestine, nervous system, reproductive organs, and an esophagus. The esophagus obviously is pretty important in feeding and hence is important as plant parasites. The size of a nematode varies greatly. Plant parasites are from 0.5 millimeter to 1.3 millimeters in length, but from 0.03 to 0.05 millimeters in width. Other nematodes, not plant parasites, can be meters long. And we'll talk about a couple of those in just a moment. The interior region of a plant parasite can be divided up into a few really key components. All plant parasites have some type of styling mechanism. This is a syringe-like structure, usually hollow, which they puncture plant cells and use for feeding. The median bulb, next on the list, is the actual pump mechanism that allows them to withdraw plant cell contents and also is involved with pumping esophageal gland secretions into the plant cell. Of course, and in between the esophageal gland and the median bulb, we have a nerve ring, which is their central nervous system, their primitive brain, if you will. So from this stylized drawing, we then have an actual picture of a plant parasitic nematode, which emphasizes, in this case, a fairly large styling. In general, nematodes have many different life strategies. We refer to many of them as free living because they are predators. They could be mycophagous, where they feed on fungi, bacteriophagous, feeding on particulate matter, including bacteria in the soil. We have entomophagous nematodes, those that are parasitic on insects. Numerous parasites of vertebrates. Most of you may be familiar with the dog heartworm, which is in fact a nematode. And then we have the ones we're most interested in here, parasites of plants. There are approximately 5,000 different species in 200 genera, of which only a small portion are of major economic importance. Their habitats, predominantly nematodes are found in the soil. Usually in soil with large pore spaces, such as a sandy soil or soil with high organic matter. It's important to realize nematodes do not tunnel in the soil. They're not earthworms, but they crawl through the existing pore spaces. So a structured soil, such as a sandy soil, has a better physical environment. They are most often associated with either a warm temperate or a tropical climate. Texas. Not so much in Maine. They require free moisture for activity. It's important to remember that any environment that supports a higher plant will support an adapted species of plant parasitic nematodes. So whether it's a tundra, an alpine environment, a tropical rainforest, whatever. If there are higher plants in that environment, there will be plant parasitic nematodes. In general, nematodes have a very simple life cycle. It begins with an egg, 4 juvenile stages, and the adults. Eggs, simple, start as one cell, go through normal cellular development through gastrula, blastula, etc., and molt and develop into the first juvenile stage. In plant parasites, it's a bit unusual that first juvenile usually undergoes the first molt within the egg, and then it is the second juvenile stage, designated J2, that actually hatches. In general, a J2 and a J3, the next juvenile stage, and a J4 differ from the adults only in size and the development of the sexual structures. Mature adults obviously have mature developed sexual structures where they're just primordia in the juvenile stages. And they vary in size. J2 may be like 15% of the adult, J3 30, and so on. So basically a pretty simple life cycle. In terms of plant parasites, we divide them up into 4 categories based on how they interact with the plant. The simplest are the migratory ectoparasites. They feed at the surface, usually of the roots, although this could be the stem or leaves in a few cases, but most of them are root parasites. So an ectoparasite feeds at the root, causing minor to somewhat more significant damage depending on the genus. Then we have the migratory endoparasites, kind of shown here in this area where the dark lines represent nematodes within a root lesion. So they actually are completely embedded within the root tissue, or it could be the tuber, bulb, etc. Then we have the sedentary forms. Both these two, migratory meaning that they can move. They have the ability to move throughout their life. They don't move far, but they do crawl around throughout their entire life cycle. Whereas the sedentary forms, once they start feeding, they swell to become greatly enlarged, such as a root knot here, or a cyst nematode here, these very large pear-shaped spherical structures that we refer to as either semi-endoparasitic, such as a cyst where part of the body is exposed, or simply a sedentary endoparasite, such as root knot, where the female is completely embedded in the host tissues. So nematodes mostly feed on roots, but we have those that are adapted to foliar tissues, vascular tissues, bulbs, and cores. This is a brief list of the most important genera in terms of plant pathology, disease losses. In general, sedentary endoparasites are usually the most significant plant pathogens. The endoparasites, migratory forms, are next in importance, and migratory ectoparasites are typically the least important. But within each group, including down here, you will find nematodes that are of significant importance in small localities. Root knot and cyst nematodes are of major importance worldwide. In general, the symptoms of disease incited by nematodes are nondescript. They're very generalized symptoms and include such things as stunting of the plant, chlorosis, incipient wilting, it's where the plant wilts even though there's apparently adequate moisture in the soil. If you dig the plant up, don't pull it out of the soil, but actually dig it up and shake the soil off the roots, you will typically find a stunted or necrotic root system. And in some cases, especially with the root gall and root knot nematodes, you will find some growth abnormalities. In general, these symptoms are, except for root galling, are not very diagnostic. They're simply poor plant growth. Nematode damage is often ascribed to poor fertility, hard pans, moisture deficits, etc. Difficult to diagnose without actually looking for the nematodes present.